Hello, everyone. Once again, you are watching the Community Team live Q&A. This week, I am joined by Michael Hall, and who's also from the Community Team, as well as a special guest. We have Liz with us here, and well, she can give her own introduction, but Liz is involved in a lot of different community teams within Ubuntu. She is very active in the Ubuntu Women team. She does stuff with Xubuntu. She's on the news team. She also does things with the Docs team. As well as all sorts of other things with her real job, quote unquote, around open source and OpenStack and all that good stuff. So I'll let her introduce herself in a little bit. As usual, if you have any questions as we go through this session, feel free to just prefix your question with the word question in uppercase. Just helps us to be able to see and pick out the question much easier. And join us on Freenode. And if you're watching this on ubuntuunder.com, you'll see the nice little chat box right down below. Pick a username and sign in, and you'll be connected to #ubuntu-on-air, and you'll find us all there and be able to chat. And now I'm in the channel as well. And like I said, just prefix your question, and we'll get to it as they come. So with that, there's a few announcements and some things that we want to talk about, and then we're going to talk with Liz a little bit. And obviously, since she's our special guest this week, any questions that you might have specific to the work that she does or the activities that she's involved in with Ubuntu, this is a great time to ask. So don't hesitate to ask Liz questions as well. So Mike, do you want to talk about some of the stuff that we going on with Ubuntu Global Jam and some of the activities and planning that's going into that?
Sure. So we picked September the 12th through the 14th, right? Whatever that weekend is, for the Ubuntu Global Jam. And for those who aren't aware, the Global Jam is something that we try and do once a cycle, where we pick a weekend and try and get people from all over the world to meet up, preferably in a physical event, just to get to know each other and to contribute to Ubuntu in some way. If you go to the link I posted in the IRC channel, we've got several different areas where you can make contributions, whether it's development, documentation, design, translations. We've got something for just about every skill set, something that you can contribute to. So yeah, we've got the Ubuntu Local Teams portal where we're going to be tracking all this. I just posted that in the IRC channel as well. So if you're a member of a Loco team, we're encouraging you to get with your other members and try and plan out a day and a place that you can do this, and then pick some action items that you want to do. We're going to be getting in contact with a bunch of the different flavors teams and other teams involved in the Ubuntu project and have them add some specific work items that you can work on to those pages on the wiki, so that you can pick something that you know is needed and gives you a nice narrow focus for when you get together. So that's about it for Global Jam. We're going to be having some workshops next week. On Wednesday, we're going to have 2 of them on the same day. One's going to be during European time, and the other one's going to be during the American time zones. So depending on where you are at in the world, you can join either one of those. They'll be on-air hangouts just like this. So you can come and you can ask questions. You can get advice on how to run one of these jams. And then also the videos will be recorded, so if you can't make either one of those, you can go back and watch also. So that's all I have for Global Jams.
Yep. So I would just say, if you are involved in any way in any of the sub projects or some of the stuff that we've listed there in Global Jam, expect to be contacted by us. If you haven't been, feel free to look at the pages and add any ideas you have. So, thanks, Mike. Yeah. So I think we should talk with Liz a little bit. I think. Why don't we start with some of your work in Ubuntu Women? First of all, why don't you explain what Ubuntu Women is, how it started, and where you guys are today, and that sort of thing.
Sure. So I guess the project was started 2006 or so. This was during a time when a lot of distributions were starting up sort of women groups. And the goal is pretty much for us to encourage women to participate and use Ubuntu. So getting more women involved in the community, getting more women using the project in general. Because there's pretty big gender disparity in open source. So over the past few years, we pretty much brought a team together made up of men and women who are interested in encouraging women and getting their daughters using Ubuntu and their girlfriends and their wives and their friends getting to use Ubuntu and contribute to the community. It's given us a nice supportive framework for bringing women into the project, and we do informal mentoring as well in the project. Women can join and get an idea of where to contribute to the project or help us out with other things. I was part of the leadership team for several years, but I have recently stepped down from that, and we just elected a new trio of leaders. So that's a pretty exciting change for the project. Getting some fresh blood in there and passing off a lot of my tasks. So good times.
Nice. It's always fun to be on the other end like that. Yeah, I like the idea of
Yeah.
Rotating in fresh blood. Here you go.
Right. Yeah.
Good
So we have some interesting projects going on. Daniel actually put together a project called Harvest a while back, and the idea was trying to make it easier for people to find bugs and other things to work on in Ubuntu. So we've tried to take on an initiative to sort of adopt that since it's been sitting out there, not really used for a long time. So we have some women working on getting that better. And it's not something really female specific, but our goal is to get more people using Ubuntu and more women involved, and we figured that was a pretty good way to start. And we also are working on something for the community website, sort of a flow chart to get involved. Like, it asks you a series of questions, and in the end you're presented with a proposal on something you could work on. So documentation or translations or other things based on your skills that you answer during the questionnaire. And again, that's not something that's specific to women, but we're working to, in general, bring more people to the project. So.
Oh, that's really awesome. I think that's just a good example of you guys taking a leadership role and pushing things forward within the community. That's awesome. I didn't realize that you guys had adopted Harvest, shall we say?
Yeah, we're sort of in the process of bug triage right now. So.
Awesome. I actually believe I used Harvest to make my first contribution to Ubuntu back in the day. So.
Yeah, the UI needs a little bit of work because it's a bit confusing, but we're working on it.
Now, the women's team just recently had new elections, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we talked about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I no longer have to be leader.
Of that team.
Right.
All right. Yeah, so should we talk about, let's see, what other interesting tidbits that you're involved in? I know you do a lot of work with Xubuntu. Do you want to talk some about what your involvement there and some about perhaps the overall bit of Xubuntu? I know that there's been some leadership changes there as well, and there's lots of exciting things happening in the Xubuntu land.
Yeah, so I've used XFCE on my Linux desktop. It's probably been 10 years now since my Gentoo and Debian days. I love XFCE, so when I switched to Ubuntu, it was the obvious choice for me. So I've been using Xubuntu since I switched to Ubuntu in 2005-ish. So I think I got involved with the project about 3 years ago, finally, after using it for so long. And I got involved because the website was running a really old version of Drupal, and I was able to chat with the guys at Canonical to get the site moved over to a modern version of WordPress. So I became the web lead of the project, not because I have particular web skills. I'm a sysadmin as my job in the daytime, but just because I was able to coordinate getting the website set up and everything for that move. And since I've been trying to help to make sure we have fresh articles on our website, at least one a month, and helping coordinate style changes and making sure the website's updated for each release and all that. I'm also the marketing lead, which just means that I'm the person in the project who knows how to use Twitter. We have a pretty low bar. We could always use help with our social media stuff just because it's sort of a thing I do. Like, oh, I should update the Google+. And so each cycle we have plans for the website and for the marketing stuff. We teamed up with Unix stickers a couple cycles ago to get Xubuntu stickers printed. We have a flyer that is pretty much finished and we need to get printed up for events and things. So that's mostly the stuff that I work on. It's sort of things I just do for fun because I love Xubuntu and I love telling people about it and using it. And it's a nice alternative for folks who still can't get used to Unity. Although it's interesting to say that some of the Unity features are sort of leaking back into these traditional desktops. We switched our menu for this past cycle in 14.04 to be Whisker menu. And one of the key features of Whisker menu is when you open the menu, the first thing you get is a search box. You can also browse applications the old-fashioned way, but the first thing that you see is a box to type things in to start searching for programs. And people seem to really like that, and I think that's a direct result of the innovations made by Unity and other desktops that have come along lately. As far as this cycle goes in Xubuntu, we're not doing a huge number of changes. We did decide to drop XChat from our image, partially because it's not really maintained in Ubuntu these days. It might be that it's not maintained upstream. I don't know, but XChat is not really maintained, so we decided to stop shipping that with Xubuntu. Our rationale there is that technically you can do IRC in the IM client that we ship, and we figure anyone who uses IRC to any degree is going to have a preference anyway, so they'll probably download and install something. That's really the only big change that we have this cycle. We're doing the standard sort of bug fixes and trying to get more testers. We always need more testers helping test our ISOs. If you've been paying attention to Xubuntu stuff, you'll notice we didn't have any alphas. That was by design, but we may also miss having betas as well because we need more testers. So if you're interested in doing ISO testing or package testing, we really need more than 1 or 2 people working on that. So.
Quick little side plug, and Liz mentions that as a great way to help out. So Liz, overall, how have you found working within the Xubuntu community? I enjoy hearing stories about how you fall into some of these positions and talking about how low the bar is. I think, this gets into some of the stuff that you gave a talk on at Scale. Yeah, blew my mind, talking about how to get involved and how to contribute to Ubuntu. But I think it was just interesting, like I said, picking up on how low the bar is and being able to get involved, and then what you've been able to do once you sort of got your foot in the door. Would you agree? Yeah,
definitely. I think the projects like Xubuntu, it's a whole operating system, and we have lots and lots of users. I bump into people all the time in the wild using Xubuntu. I was recently at a work sprint at Deutsche Telekom, so I was in Germany working on OpenStack, and the guy at Deutsche Telekom was doing a presentation. He was using Xubuntu, and that was so exciting. It's always great to see that out there, hey, that's something that I help with. But honestly, our team is 10 people, and we're all volunteers. We're all part-time, and really anyone who comes to our channel and spends time and engages with the team is really valuable to us. So you could, within a few months, become a really valuable person in the project if you spend a few hours a week with us. so it's because nobody's paid and we're all doing this for fun, and it puts us in a unique position to accept contributors from all kinds of spaces, and we need contributors on pretty much everything. I mean, we're updating the documentation now. We're going to need translators. Again, I mentioned testing, but it's super important. And then there's also a lot of packaging related things and other things. I'm happy to say that we've grown our tech team, so we do have more people working on packaging. We have a Debian liaison now, which is exciting.
So for people who do want to contribute, what's the best way for them to get in touch with the Xubuntu team?
So we do most of our work on Xubuntu Devel on Freenode, but we have I think it's a how to contribute link on the website. I think or it says get involved. Let's see. So yeah, on xubuntu.org, there is a get involved link under community down at the bottom right. That'll link to all our resources, so our mailing list, our IRC channel, and all that. Yes, thanks for posting that in channel.
And I know that you guys are already starting to try and find some work items for people to use during the upcoming Global Jam that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, so we're hoping to get some teams doing things like, okay, testing. That was a big one for us. We're not really asking people to focus on bug triage because we have a lot of bugs, just like any project. But definitely testing is a big one. And I haven't checked the email thread this morning, so I don't know what else we're trying to focus on.
Well, we will get those listed on the appropriate wiki pages for the Global Jam, so if anyone's interested, you can go look for them there.
Yeah, and we're also, I'd like to mention, like our development list, it's not super high traffic, and we talk about everything on there. We talk about marketing, we talk about documentation, we talk about our plans for the Global Jam. So if you're interested in our discussion on that, that's on the development list too. So it's not just, hardcore technical developers, it's really anyone who's interested. Someone had a question in channel about window snapping, but I don't know what window snapping is.
That's where if you drag a window like all the way to the side of your screen, it'll resize to fill up half of it.
Oh yeah, it does that now. Xubuntu does it by default. I think that was in 4.10 that we brought that in from XFCE. Like there's one for the top of the screen and one for the side of the screen. I do it now, but I'd mess up my Hangout.
You're saying that's new in Utopic?
No, it's actually been around for a couple of cycles.
Okay.
I don't know if people noticed it though.
It's one of those things that you don't often know is there until you try and do it.
It's usually like someone will be like, "Oh my God, what just happened to my window?" You do, I think actually on my desktop right here, I was actually just playing with it. It doesn't work because I have a setting to be able to move my windows between desktops, virtual desktops. So instead of snapping to the side, it will move it to my other desktop. But it does work in the default configuration. So if you have the thing where if you drag a window to the side and it brings it to the next window, it won't work. But in the default configuration, it does.
All right. So when we had somebody on here to talk about Xubuntu, we found out that they actually are heavily involved in the development of KDE itself. What is the Xubuntu's team relationship with upstream XFCE?
So we've got a couple developers who participate in upstream. We forward along bugs, participate in mailing lists. And a big one is, I mentioned we have a Debian liaison. That's so we can make sure that the XFCE packages in Debian are in good shape, and so when we sync them in, they're available for us to use sort of right away. So that's pretty much where we are. But I mean, we're a pretty small team. XFCE is a tiny team. I think they're smaller than us. So we try to help out where we can. But things go pretty slowly in XFCE land. So. They need help too if you want to work on that.
All right. And if anyone has any other questions, please get them into IRC. If you wait until the end of the session, there's a very good chance that it'll get missed. So ask them as you think about them. Now, XFCE is still GTK2, right?
It's sort of in the middle. We're migrating to GTK3, so we've had to update our themes and all that. But it's not fully GTK3 yet.
Okay. I know a big topic around desktops these days is switching display servers off of X11. Are there any plans for XFCE to do that, or are they planning on sticking with it for the foreseeable future?
I think there are no plans. So we're XFCE is sort of just going to ride out the wave and see where it goes. There's no plans to switch. There's no preliminary work being done on Wayland or Mirror or anything. So we'll probably just land where we land.
Okay.
We've got more than enough to worry about otherwise.
Yeah, and I can't imagine X11's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually, so we did have a mirror image last year that people were playing with Xubuntu, but that was just the X emulation. So it was a very fun testing experiment for our community, but it was not like mirror.
How did that work out with XFCE? I know I did the same thing with Unity 7 for a little over a year, and didn't really have many problems with that.
It was a massive disaster. No, it wasn't great. Like, some people got it working, but it was slower than native Xorg. And then some people couldn't get it. Like, their screen would just be like crazy broken, not getting it running at all. We also have a big
certain hardware still.
Yeah. We also have a really big community that does multi-monitor stuff. And the multi-monitor support wasn't landed till really late in the cycle. I think it was after Feature Freeze even. So we weren't really able to consider it as an option because we really love having good multi-monitor support.
Yeah, I think that was one of the main reasons why it wasn't included by default, actually, was the multi-monitor support.
Yeah, that's a huge one for us. Because I think a lot of the users of Xubuntu want a lot of flexibility. So being able to change anything and span their desktop across multiple monitors is a huge one.
So I'm actually kind of curious on, in a lot of ways, to me, XFCE is kind of like this nice rock of stability. Of what the 4.12 or future releases look like for XFCE?
They're coming slowly. I think a big thing was the GTK stuff, trying to get that ironed out because we're just at a weird space. But there aren't a lot of huge changes. I mean, 4.10 was pretty good with a lot of the changes. Like the snap window thing was new, and there are other things that are new, but I can't remember them because they're now just part of my workflow. But I remember being very excited about it. I don't know. I don't really know what 4.12 brings us, but there aren't going to be any drastic changes. Pretty solid desktop as it is.
All right. Changing gears a little bit away from Xubuntu, you're also part of the Ubuntu News team. Can you tell us a little bit about what that team does?
So if you're subscribed to the Ubuntu Weekly newsletter, that's a thing that we put together in the news team every weekend. So throughout the week, we'll collect links from the Ubuntu Planet, canonical blogs, news articles. I have an Ubuntu alert on Google News, so it sends me articles about Ubuntu. And then I have this massive RSS feed that just goes through like dozens of tech blogs. And then I just, at the end of the week, I search for Ubuntu in that, and then I pick out some of the better articles and add them to the newsletter. So throughout the week we're collecting links, and then on the weekend we have people come in and write summaries for us. We have a shared Google Doc where people write summaries, and then we move everything over to the wiki, send it off to the editors, and then we're ready for releasing on Monday. Right now, Jose Antonio Rey and I are really the only ones working on this every weekend. We have contributors who come here and there and write summaries, but we need a lot more contributors to the newsletter because Jose and I are getting tired. But it's something that the community finds a lot of value in. When I started working on the project in 2011, it had been pretty much shuttered for about 6 months. The previous editor had left, and we weren't really able to pull a team together. So I think it was like from January to June, there were no releases of the newsletter in 2011. And during that time, I kept bumping into people in the world who asked me what was going on, because people ask me random things about Ubuntu all the time. So they were like, Liz, what happened to the newsletter? I was like, well, there's no one around to run it. But now we have a couple people around. So we're working hard to make sure that we keep releasing every week. Based on mailing, so we post it to a mailing list, Discourse, Ubuntu forums, the Ubuntu fridge, and so we think we've got somewhere around 10,000 readers regularly, and then people who read it otherwise. So it's actually something that weekly gets out to a lot of people. And you can get your name on the newsletter if you write a summary. So I highly recommend you coming and helping us out. We're in Ubuntu News on Freenode, and Nick posted a link to our wiki page, which also has all these ways to get in contact with us and has a link to the Google Doc that we work on and everything.
And is that Google Doc open for anybody to just jump in and start writing a summary, or do they need to ask for access to it?
No, anyone can just join. We've only had a couple of problems with that. I think like 3 weeks ago someone deleted the entire thing, but it has revision control, so I just backed it up and we came back to where we were before someone deleted it. So, but that's pretty rare. Most people are good people. I also want to say if you're unsure about your English skills or otherwise are interested, want to help out, but you don't really know if you can write a good summary, I will tell you right now that editing a summary to improve it is much, much easier than writing it from scratch. So even if you're just getting started with writing summaries, if you just write something basic in there, I can just add something to it or improve it, or maybe it's awesome and you're just not giving yourself enough credit.
I think that's more often than not the case in our community. We've got a lot of really talented people that aren't aware of just how talented they actually are.
Yeah, so I encourage you to come give it a try and chat with us about working on the team.
And for people who want to submit content, if they read an interesting article about Ubuntu, how can they get that to you?
So there's lots of ways. We have the Ubuntu News channel. You can tell us in there. We also have a mailing list, ubuntu-news-team@lists.ubuntu.com. If you send an email to that, it'll land in the moderation queue, and I can let it through. You can also email it. The team has an email address. I think it's on our wiki. Or you can just find me and give me the link, and I'll make sure it gets included. Or Jose, he's always around too.
All right, and I've been submitting summaries for the Ubuntu Engineering Live Hangouts that I do every other week, and you'd mentioned to me that you'd really like to get more video content also. Is that still the case?
It is, actually. In the issue we released yesterday, we didn't have any video or audio. We have like a special audio and video section. People seem to like that a lot, so we definitely want more contributions to that. And when we don't include something, it's only because I sort of explained my process for collecting news. It's not exactly thorough. So we want people to tell us about news and projects they're working on. I felt really bad because the 14.04 version of the Ubuntu manual came out on Friday, which is super exciting, but I just didn't check my manual email. So that didn't get included in the last newsletter, but it will be in this week's. So I miss news all the time. So telling me about it is great, and telling me about Ubuntu-based videos, not so much how-tos, but like things that are news, updates from teams. If your team is doing a hangout and you've made it live, letting me know and letting the team know is super helpful to us. Someone asked about a version of Xubuntu for Chromebooks. The team doesn't really have any plans for that.
I know you can install Ubuntu on Chromebooks, so I'm not sure
so
if it's just a matter of
actually
installing the Xubuntu desktop on top of that.
Yeah, it's because there's the Xubuntu is just a meta package within Ubuntu. So if you install the Xubuntu desktop package, you can probably get it. But I've never tried it, and I quite like Chrome OS.
Yeah, I actually I still have a Chromebook that runs Ubuntu, so definitely works.
Okay.
Mr. Brownstone 3G is asking if there's any news on an image-based Ubuntu server, which to me says that we need to get somebody from the server team on one of these Q&As next, because I actually don't know. I know they've been talking about it and considering the implications of that. But outside of just knowing that it's being talked about, I don't know if there's any news or plans yet.
So, Mike, share with us what exactly that is. That is the idea of having a diff-based read-only server, or what?
It's kind of like what we're doing on the phones right now, where you've got a read-only system image that you can get updates in just a diff of that image. And it's working really well for the phones. It makes sure that we know, what the base system is, and then you can just add stuff on top of that. So for server, you can, for example, have an image of Ubuntu server that you just add either LXC containers or Docker containers or Juju charms or something on top of that doesn't require installing more deb packages. That way you always know what your server is running on the system level, and you can push out changes to that in much smaller package differences. So they're investigating what benefits there would be to that on the server and what drawbacks there would be to see if it's something that they want to push forward with.
Excellent. I'd only heard some rumblings about that, but I didn't know that they were moving forward or not with it. So.
But like I said, all I know is that they're talking about it and investigating the cost and benefit of it. So we should definitely try and get somebody from the server team on.
Sounds like a good idea. And what about on the desktop front? Is it something we would consider for the desktop as well?
It is something that's being considered for the desktop also. Most of what's in the phone images right now is being considered for the desktop, as far as click packages and app confinement and all of that. In fact, we're going to start sending out a survey pretty soon here once I finalize the list of people who are going to get it, to try and get feedback and stories on how these things might impact the different use cases that people are using Ubuntu for. So we're pretty sure that those will work for the standard desktop user use cases, but we want to make sure that we've got as many edge case considerations as possible to make sure we're not going to break anything for anybody if we do. All right, we've got one more question from Kapanda. He wants to set up his own Ubuntu community in Midgard, Johannesburg, because he just recently opened an internet cafe. So most countries have a loco team, whether it's active or not, you'd have to check. But go to loco.ubuntu.com/teams and try and see if there's one already for your country. And if there is, get in touch with the people already involved in that. I know local teams very often are on the lookout for a good venue to host meetups. Things like the Ubuntu Global Jam, which we've got coming up.
And if that's Johannesburg, that's in South Africa, there's definitely an active loco team there. I see their updates. They do lots of things down there.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would reach out to them, let them know you've got this internet cafe and you support Ubuntu and you want them to have events there. I think that would be hugely welcomed by them, and you'd start to get a lot of activity on that. And of course, put all of that activity in the loco team portal so that everybody else gets to see what's going on in your area.
Yeah, and you mentioned flavors. We don't really have press CDs, at least for Xubuntu, because again, we're not like an organization or a company. We're sort of like a team. So we don't have like Ubuntu has pressed images for the LTS releases. We don't have anything like that. So if you're trying to share the flavors with people who come into your shop, burning them is really the only option, or just installing them on your computers and having people try them out. You can install multiple flavors on one machine. So if you have users who are comfortable with Unity and some of them who want to use KDE, you can give an option when you log in to choose different desktops on the same machine. So.
Yeah, I think USB drives are becoming quite a bit more popular than CDs or DVDs nowadays anyway.
Yeah.
You can get a couple of USB drives and pass them around to everybody and let everyone install from that.
They're way faster.
Yes.
Like, you remember the read-write CDs, yes? That was like
Yes.
mind-blown moment when those came out. But I don't think I ever really fully realized that dream until flash drives came about. The idea of, like,
I don't think I ever successfully actually rewrote a CD.
Never?
No, never. Back then, the CD burning apps were not always reliable.
Surprising. I did use it a little bit, but in theory it's handy. But now the flash drive totally takes the cake on that. You can. Yeah.
In fact, my current laptop has no CD DVD drive at all anymore.
Yeah,
And
mine doesn't either.
More and more going that way.
Yeah, I don't think mine does. Neither of them. No.
Pretty soon it's going to be as obsolete as a floppy disk.
Yeah, that is interesting. I still have one in this desktop PC sitting next to me. Although I remember at one point I was changing out a hard drive and I had noticed it had been disconnected, and I never realized it. So, which means I did not try and use it, despite the fact that it existed. Rather fun. Did we?
All right. If anybody has any other questions, please start asking them in IRC. We've got about 20 minutes left on this call. But if we don't have any questions or anything left to talk about, we'll end up ending it early.
Oh, I can chat about the documentation team.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I still wanted to talk about docs.
So the cool thing about the docs team is it's another really, really tiny team. Help.ubuntu.com, and the documentation there is the same documentation that gets shipped in the Ubuntu versions. Like if you search for help in the dash, that's what comes up. And while we tend to call these the official docs because they're the ones that get shipped with Ubuntu, there's no one really at Canonical working on these docs. So anyone in the community can get involved in helping us submit patches and do updates to these docs. It's something we need a lot of help with because oftentimes we don't really know what the new features are in the new version, and the developers will tell us just to go read blueprints, but as mortals, we find that very hard because the list of blueprints is long. So we always need people telling us, like, hey, we should update this in the documentation. Even going through the documentation that exists for, say, 1404, and then submitting bugs, saying, like, this is no longer part of it, or this feature has changed. That helps us a lot. On our wiki page, we also have instructions for building the latest development version of the docs, and it's really not very hard. You install a few packages, you run a command, and it builds the documentation in HTML format, which you can browse. You can look at it in your browser. So getting started is really easy, and getting involved. We're in Ubuntu Doc on Freenode, and we also have the Ubuntu Doc mailing list. You can contact us on any of those, and we can help you get started. So that's the big part of the team, is the official documentation for the desktop. We also have a server guide that always needs help on, and then we have help.ubuntu.com/community, which is our wiki, and our wiki is a crazy place. doesn't have a lot of pages updated. We do our best as admins to tag pages that need updating or are out of date for some reason, and then when people visit those pages, they at least know they're out of date. And if they have expertise in that area, they can update them. But if someone's looking for a more casual contribution, helping out on the wiki is pretty easy and straightforward. Some of the wiki admins do get emails about every change that's made, but honestly, we don't keep super on top of that unless we see a serious problem. Like if we see someone deleting a lot of stuff or making a lot of changes that we find are really scary, we'll usually catch that eventually. We haven't really had issues with it, but we do sort of keep an eye on it. But it's a very free place if people want to help contribute to that. So that's my spiel on docs.
So is there a list of what exactly pages or work you need, or is it better to just get in contact with the team and start asking where you can contribute?
So there's a tags page, which will link you to so we have all these tags. We have ones that say like needs updating or this is the wrong version of Ubuntu. I can dig up the link in a minute. And that will, if you go to that page, first of all, you'll find out all the tags that we have. And then if you click on a tag, it'll take you to a list of pages that have that tag. So if you're just sort of looking for a general thing to do an update on, that's a super helpful one to go to. Let me find.
All right. While you're finding that, we've got a question about UEFI and Xubuntu, Ubuntu, and Kubuntu. Linus Anon is asking if that's a problem. My understanding is that Canonical has a UEFI signing key that has been signed by the one that Microsoft has installed by a bunch of OEMs. So the official images for these should be able to just boot into UEFI environments without an issue.
Yeah, I have colleagues who are running Xubuntu on machines that are UEFI. I still have good old BIOS, so. So I put the tag link in channel. So if you look at that, you can see the tags that we have, and then click on them for more. I think more often than going to this page, because not everyone knows everything about Ubuntu, is they just find a wiki page and say they were coming to it to find help, but they realized that they could actually help improve it. Logging into the wiki can sometimes be a bit finicky since the switch to the Ubuntu One login. So if you have any problems and a page looks unmutable or immutable, even if you log in, just let us know and we can help you get your account set up properly.
All right, and we could use that list of things to give people something to do during Global Jam. Yeah,
definitely. And the good thing about the wiki is we don't really, so for the documentation we ship with the Ubuntu, obviously we're updating that with each release because we have to ship it. But the wiki is sort of not really dependent on the release cycle, so you can update the wiki at any time.
All right, we had another question about Xubuntu from Uwash. It says, is Thunar also developed by that tiny team of XFCE? How is the Ubuntu team involved in Thunar development? And for those who aren't familiar, Thunar is the XFCE file manager.
Yeah, yeah, that team's really small too. I don't actually know how many people are working on it, but it's a very simple file manager, so it doesn't have a lot of features, and I know there are people who want more features, but yeah, not very many people working on it. And as far as I know, there's not really anyone in Xubuntu who's focused on it all, the development of Thunar at all. So if anyone wants to help.
It is a very nice file manager. I actually ran Thunar on GNOME for a couple of years just because I liked some of the features, like search and replace renaming is very powerful in Thunar.
Yeah, I actually did the same thing for the same reason. I adopted it because of the renaming capabilities. I really like this. So.
Nice. Yeah, but you know, people want things like attaching to all kinds of different shares through their file manager and doing all kinds of things, and Thunar just really doesn't do all the fancy things that some of the other ones do.
Yeah, I finally gave it up when I learned how to do the same thing from the command line. But coming from Windows, having it there in a nice GUI was like mind-blowing to have. All right, are there any other teams you want to talk about, Liz? I know you're involved in almost every team there is in Ubuntu.
I think that's good. I'm not going to be doing a global jam in my home state of California because I'm going to be hanging out with Michael and Nick at FaucetCon. Yeah.
We will be doing something for a global jam there, though.
Cool.
Yes.
But I do a lot. I do a lot with Ubuntu California, so that's fun. If anyone's in California, we have weekly meetings and stuff and do events. I'm trying to get someone to do a global jam, but I won't be around, so I can't herd the cats this time.
We've been talking about global jam a lot, and that's because we do want to get people more active in that. It used to be more active in years past, and we want to reinvigorate that. So if anybody's interested, like I said, we've got workshops coming up next week to talk about how to do it. It's really easy to set one up. And then, again, we've got this page on loco.ubuntu.com where we're going to list all of the different teams participating.
Yeah, and we did a global jam. It was probably 2 years ago on ISO testing, and it took a bit more doing. Like it took actual preparation. I had to get the images ready, and print out some things and do a bunch of stuff. But like people in my team still talk about that event. They're like, "Oh yeah, I remember the ISO one. We should do that again." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we should sometime when I'm not traveling." But ISO testing is a really good one because people get to you can all you need to do is bring your laptop and you could do live testing and package testing and things. And it's something. It's not easy to teach people because you still need to teach them how to submit bugs, which is pretty much the hardest part. But it does get a lot of people in a room getting excited about testing and feeling like, you know, submitting results to the tracker and getting something real done. So that was a lot of fun for our team.
The last big jam the Florida team did is me, Chris Johnston, and I think you too, Nick. And we were hacking on the Summit project, which runs summit.ubuntu.com, and we managed to get through about 6 months worth of feature requests in that one afternoon.
I remember that.
Nice. Yeah, we had one jam in California that was on the jam weekend, and it was just like me and an Ubuntu developer who met in a coffee shop, and we're like, we're gonna work on our Debian packages today in the same room. Like that was all we did. But it was there, and we got to be social and, you know, do our work in a coffee shop rather than at home.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is just being social and meeting people who are near you who have the same interests in Ubuntu as you. We do a lot of stuff online, but that human connection is still nice to have.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other questions? We'll leave it open for another minute or two and see. Just want to give a quick plug. Tomorrow at 1400 UTC, I'm going to be hosting another Ubuntu Engineering Live broadcast right here on ubuntuonair.com. That's where I get different people from the engineering teams in Canonical on a live broadcast to talk about what they've been working on so that the community knows what's going on internally and who's doing what and what the progress is on that. So if you want to come and watch that update, again, that'll be tomorrow at 1400 UTC. And if you miss it, it'll be recorded, and I will get that video link and summary to Elizabeth to get into Ubuntu Weekly News afterwards.
Hey.
And then, of course, we do these community Q&A sessions every week at the same time at 1500 UTC on Tuesdays. And we try and get a different guest on every time to talk about what they've been working on. I don't know who we've got lined up for next week. It's probably going to be our other colleagues running it, though. So David, Daniel, and/or Alan should be on for that. All right, Nick, Elizabeth, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any other plugs you wanted to make? I know, Elizabeth, you just had a book published, or an update to a book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is the 8th edition of the official Ubuntu book. Yay!
Nice.
I'll be bringing some copies to FaucetCon and various events I'll be at. But it's very exciting for me. It was sort of on my bucket list for a long time, so very excited.
Very cool. And who else was working on that with you?
So my co-author was Matthew Helmke. He's been involved with the book for several releases. And then Jose Antonio Rey, I worked with directly on a lot of the editing of chapters. We sort of were swapping chapters back and forth to get them updated. We had to do a lot of revisions with the 8th edition because they're only releasing it every 2 years now. So we did a lot of future-proofing. We pulled out a lot of outdated stuff and tried to make sure things in it don't get quickly outdated. Of course, we mentioned the Ubuntu Developer Summit, which is now the Ubuntu Online Summit, so oops. That changed after it went to print. But we tried to make it as future-proof as possible. And then I think Philip Ballou, he did some of the editing after we got the chapters in. And Philip is in my Loco team. And Jose, I think everyone knows Jose. He does tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah, Jose is like you. He's involved in everything.
Yeah, with me, we work together like every day.
In fact, Nick, we should add him to the list of people we want to get on these Q&As.
All right, he's next.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for coming on and for all those wonderful updates.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone on IRC, for your questions. And join us again next week for another Community Team Q&A. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.